We've got breaking news this morning on First Take. Myles Garrett has officially requested a trade from the Browns. According to our own Adam Schefter, Garrett spent all 8 of his NFL seasons in Cleveland, earning 6 All-Pros and the Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. But that isn't enough for Garrett, who put out this statement saying, quote, "While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stage won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns." Wow. Stephen A., you surprised by this?
I'm not surprised, and I completely support Myles Garrett. The Browns organization, they've been to the playoffs 2 times in the last 5 years. That's the good news, and that's really not that good. The real bad news is that they've been in 2 playoff games to the playoffs twice in the last 22, 23 years. This is a team that has not gotten it done. And the person that I blame the most, unfortunately, respectfully, is Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson had gotten to Cleveland and balled the way he was capable, the way he showcased how he could ball when he was a Houston Texan, Myles Garrett would not be asking for this trade. He's asking for this trade because he knows Cleveland struggles to find a quarterback. They've left it all on the shoulders of their defense. There doesn't seem to be any relief or any help in sight, and he wants to be in a winning situation because he doesn't believe this to be the case. This ain't about anything more so than the fact that you've gotten suspect production from the quarterback position, and he knows the chances of winning are slim to none.
Totally. He wants to compete, and he knows that he can't there. Garrett has recorded over 100 sacks since entering the league in 2017. Only TJ Watt of the Steelers has had more over that span.
Breaking news from the NFL. Star pass rusher Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. He released a statement saying he is making the request because his ultimate career goal is to win a Super Bowl. Garrett is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year and a 4-time All-Pro who has recorded double-digit sacks in every season except his rookie year. More from that statement that he released. He said, quote, "While I love calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns." Those are the words of Myles Garrett, and now we get to the words of our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. And JJ, first question for you. Are you surprised by this coming out?
A little bit surprised, considering that when they went back, when the Browns sort of restructured Deshaun Watson's contract, it appeared that that was the signal to Myles Garrett, to a veteran player like Joel Bitonio. Hey, we're going to compete in 2025 and beyond. Things seemed to get a little quiet. In the post-season press conference, Andrew Berry was very adamant about keeping Myles Garrett for the foreseeable future. And then we saw and heard from Andrew Berry talking with local reporters in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl, where he reiterated that. And now you have Myles Garrett at the start of Super Bowl week. That is not at all any sort of coincidence, saying that he wants a trade from the Cleveland Browns. It is going to be the most discussed news item of the day. We have Roger Goodell's press conference coming up later. We have media night tonight with the Eagles and the Chiefs. But this is the time, Super Bowl week, in years past, where we have seen guys try to force their way out of situations. We remember a couple of years ago, Russell Wilson letting it be known that he no longer wanted to be with the Seattle Seahawks, for example. So, and his frustrations there. So this is very intentional that it drops on Monday morning, the start of Super Bowl week. Myles Garrett certainly letting everyone know that he wants out of Cleveland, and we certainly will see how this plays out over the next 5 weeks, because free agency begins 5 weeks from today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you made of the timing of all of this. What do you gain by putting this statement out right now compared to 2 weeks from now or some other time down the line?
Yeah, well, first of all, you gain some public leverage, right? You get fans and media talking about it. You get teams, certainly, who are trying to figure out their cap situation, who want to look. If you took Andrew Berry at his word over the past month, you couldn't trade for Myles Garrett. He could not be had. Now we all know that Myles Garrett wants to be had. He wants to be traded for. And so now teams are going to put together packages that will begin with 2 first-round picks. There's not a chance that the Cleveland Browns, if they ultimately do trade him, and we're not there yet, I assume that we're going to get a statement from the Browns where they're going to say, you know, we intend to have Myles Garrett with us for the foreseeable future, just like they have been saying. They will not be publicly moved by this move by Myles Garrett. That said, teams are going to have to get their trade packages together. It will begin with 2 first-round picks. If the Browns do trade him, it will be for even more than that. But that is where you're going to have to start. We still don't know what the salary cap is for this upcoming year. And so teams are trying to sort of work with what they estimate it to be, what it could be on the low end, what it could potentially be on the high end. So that's another reason that you get it out there. But I want to go back to that statement. And I want to go back to what Myles Garrett said, where he referenced the goal was to never go from Cleveland to Canton. And we know that Canton is where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is located. But that's an interesting sentence and phrase right there, because if you rewind back to January, Andrew Berry said in his press conference, we envision him going from Cleveland to Canton when his career is over. And so that is a direct shot at the general manager and what he said. That is not some phrase that he just dreamt up of on his own. That is directly tied to that earlier January press conference. So this is laying the gauntlet down from Myles Garrett and his representation, referencing what the GM said, saying that you want to win a Super Bowl, believing you can't get it done with the Cleveland Browns, and doing so publicly the week of the Super Bowl.
So then, JJ, we have this, and it's like, okay, maybe the fighting gloves have now been put on. Do you think this ends smoothly, or does this get messy at some point, no matter which way it goes?
Yeah, honestly, you know, who knows? It probably will get a little messy before it ever gets smooth. Stuff like this rarely goes down smoothly. Again, we've not yet heard from the Browns. Again, I am with an educated guess believing that they are going to say we're not trading Myles, and then it's going to go one of 2 ways. These 2 sides are either going to kumbaya over the next month or so, or they're going to come back and say, listen, we're at an impasse. And ultimately, we decided in the best interest of the Cleveland Browns, it was to trade Myles Garrett. And they don't want it to be a reset or a restart, but they're going to be able to have a bunch of first-round picks. You're picking in the top 2 of the draft. Abdul Carter could be right there for you, where you kind of trade out Myles Garrett, you get in Abdul Carter, and you get some first-round picks, whether it's in 2025 and 2026 and 2027. Rarely do we see a player-for-player trade. That's really hard to execute, but you can imagine that most of the league would be interested in Myles Garrett. I would say there's probably somewhere close from 7 to 10 teams who could actually put together a trade package to deal for him. And then there's going to be 4 to 5 teams, I think, and without naming them, but just because of the caliber of player that Myles Garrett is. You get one of these edge rushers who's a game wrecker, a game changer,